Okay, so we have a little bit of a problem with just how powerful Argenta is in the current patch. And yeah, we're probably going to have to show that off here. Because it's not okay. She is just too strong. So I am going to show you off what Argenta is up to on this patch, because it is something just a little bit ridiculous. So we're going to look to be building up some versatility here. The new features that she gets with the upgrade version of Furious Recital is just a little bit gosh darn nutty. So you'll be glad to hear, as I get into the build, that I will be showing that it is actually incredibly viable to build into heavy bolters and flamers. So bolt and flamer is definitely going to be what you're going to be wanting to do with this. Ah, even Alpha managed to get a little turn. He's not the purpose of the show, clearly, so we'll just get him to kick this guy. So I've set it up so Jay can pop over a finest hour here, just so we can sort of show the sort of damage that Argenta's doing here. So Reckless Rush to get up our initial bit of movement, and let's have a look at some of the damage that we can pop out here. So 442, looking pretty good on Kunrad. And a lot of this is going to be coming from Litany of Hatred, because the stacks of Zeal that it adds is going to add quite a bit of base damage here. And we'll be able to get even more when we, say, use our Heavy Bolter. So nothing is really going to survive the Heavy Bolter. So I'm just going to move to make sure that I actually shoot something with some health. And so even before Degraded Defense is really built up, you can see the sort of damage that we're working with here, which is, in fact, a lot. It is a lot. There's no other way to put it. It's doing a lot. Okay, can we line this up to hit both these guys? Sometimes the map is not working with us. There we go. But yes, Kunrad, he is not a friend, so we will be as mean as humanly possible to him. There we go. That's the nice little reset we were looking for. Oh, let's not blast Jay. He's already down. But as you can see, we are very, very comfortably clearing through this encounter, and this is one that we are playing on unfair as always, and it is one that people often complain about. So the new ways that Priest works, which I'll get into more with the build, is it really stacks up Bolter, Melter, General Damage and Flamers passively, and then when you actually use the anti-demon, anti-heretic sort of stuff, and anti-Xenos, you get up some really high damage. And we're going to get another chance to actually use this now on the rest of the term. So because this is a multi-stage fight, we're going to get another use of her Furious Recital. And as you can see, we have a lot of willpower that we built up from those kills and what we're doing here. So then when we pop this, we get that extra 190 base damage from that litany going on there. We will pop a flamethrower shot here. 200, not too bad. But then we're going to get in our full burst and we're going to proc all of our talents. But as you can see, a 45 damage burst. Welcome to the Argenta build. I'm Revan619, and get ready to see some broken stuff that I am surely believing they're going to nerf. Argenta just continues to go from strength to strength with all of these updates. In 1.5, she has never been so overpowered. That one burst that you saw me do on Daybreak, I checked the actual stats. Each bullet wanted to do 3k damage, but it was being reduced by the enemy's armor. If I had bothered to use my Iron Eye grenades, then my damage would have been a lot higher, and if I had removed some deflection, even higher than that. So Yes, what is happening here is obviously the Corruption Helmet that they added in 1.4 is doing a lot. But there's now also the added benefits of the Priest rework, which is exceptional. As you can see, I'm even using Chains of Domination to build willpower because of how this works. So let's talk about the changes that we are seeing with the Archetype. So the way Furious Recital now works is you get stacks of zeal as you go into combat. So when you first start the combat, if we actually look at the passive, so we'll read that out here just so you can all be up to date on this. So Unshakable Faith. In combat, the Ministerial Priest gains 48 willpower, which is going to be, oh, they don't have it there. It doubles your willpower. So I've got base yeah, so my base willpower is going to get doubled here, so it will increase it by that. I don't know why that's 48 and not 45 with the 10 or even 55. And at the start of combat, they gain willpower stacks of zeal. So this will tend to be doubled, so you'll probably see like 10 going in there. They gain 1 stack of zeal for each enemy they attack with a bolter, flamer, chain melter, or power weapon, and that's chain sword and like chain axe, not rock swords. That's why that got renamed. They gain 2 stacks of zeal for each demon or Xenos killed in combat by any source. So this in itself is already pretty good. And then when you activate the ability War Hymn, or Furious Recital as it is on Argenta, it grants 2 times the number of zeal stacks, momentum, then the Sister of Adeptus Storotas, I guess Sister of Battle, gains 5 stacks of zeal. So this gains even more stacks of it when you use it and does not provoke the attack of opportunity. But then that works with the new talents. So we'll actually show off what these new talents are, so you can understand how this is working. So the first one that they changed was Flensing Faith. The Ministerial Priest gains armor penetration with chain and power weapons. Critical hits scored with such weapons inflict levels of burning. Again, this is going to be based on willpower, so that will normally be double that. And that's going to be for your melee build. So this is going to be like a chainsword blade dancer. Will do very well with that. Litany of Hatred is the huge upgrade. And this is a party-wide buff, which is absolutely insane. Whenever the priest uses War Hymn or Furious Recital for 1 round, the priests themselves and their allies in a 5-cell radius deal number of zeal stacks divided by 2 more weapon damage. This bonus is double against Demon, Psychos, and Xenos. So this is a party-wide buff of base damage that you'll be seeing coming in. As you saw when I hit Kunrad, he had 15, and if he was a Xenos, that would have been 30 extra base damage. Litany of Purification. Each Demon or Xenos in a 5-cell radius suffers direct damage at 1 stack of perplexed. That direct damage, it doesn't say what it's based on, but I think it's based on momentum gain, so it's pretty damn big. But then here is another huge one, Tenets of Retribution. The Ministerial Priest deals willpower divided by 3, more damage, and 5%, which is willpower, more critical damage with bolt weapons. Base melter weapons and flamer damage is increased by, again, willpower. So melters and flamers get a nice direct damage here. You get another base damage coming in with bolt weapons. So bolt weapons get really bigly buffed, and this bonus is doubled against Demon, Psychers, and Xenos. The Emperor Protects will also give more willpower bonus based on to your health. This is also huge. So the Death World Blade Dance priest build is absolutely insane. I'll cover that in a completely different video, but that build is bloody insane. So with the new priest buffs, Argenta's damage is going through the goddamn roof. She's very good with the heavy flamer. You get Purging Fury towards the end, but that 10% direct damage that it does there, this essentially allows her to one-shot the shard. So you flame it, then you burst it, and you one-shot the final boss of the game. It is absolutely insane. Obviously, her unique power armor is very good, and she benefits from the new power armors. So one of the things I do, so she still can't use modified to Artificer armor, which would actually make her incredibly OP because having 1 AP burst would be insane. But she can use the Adherent of Mankind, which is currently on Abelard. But in Act 3, I popped that onto her, so she was able to get all those nice little stats and make that whole area just a lot easier to get through. But yes, this is the strongest Argent's ever been. Any items to increase willpower are going to be very beneficial because her willpower is getting doubled in combat, and then that's turning into like raw damage. So Priest is incredibly powerful. It's going to be very powerful for a player. It's going to be powerful for small bolt weapons, large bolt weapons, flamers, big and small. Melters are still entirely unimpressive. I can't lie, unless you come to actually speaking about Chorda. Now, Chorda uniquely is very good with her melters. And obviously she gets the one good melter pistol in the game, which unfortunately is only for Act 5, which is the Virtuous Vindication, but that's because this melter adds not only burning but melting and stunned on shells. It works like how all melters should. If this was just sort of the base but the top end of how melters work, melters would actually be very useful, especially if you had a way to lower their 1 AP shot to like the pistol shot to be 1 AP and then the area shot to be 2 AP on the bigger ones. That would be perfectly fine and perfectly balanced. So let's actually look under the hood here and see what I've changed her build, because I've actually optimized her quite a bit. Because, again, I used strategies that weren't very intuitive, and whilst the builds were very strong to carry people through, a lot of people weren't hitting the same numbers I were because they either didn't understand how you could prime or proc your talents. So I'm going to discuss that, and I've changed how to build. So in the last patch, I focused more early game on building for shotguns. We don't need to do that no more. We really don't. It's very strong. So she's going to focus on demolitions because eventually that will build in to her shotguns and her flamers. So it's very good for damage there. Early game, you will use shotguns and you won't move to flamers till a little bit later when you get some better ones. Reverend Slaughter is the big ability of Soldier, which is whenever you get a number of kills, you can increase your ballistic skill, your agility bonus, critical damage, as well as your critical hit chance, and it stacks up your damage quite nicely, and it resets the winded status that you get from run and gun, which is something that increases your attack economy as well as your movement. Firearm Mastery is another one that is an absolutely fantastic ability, and I think it was slept on for so long. Basically, the soldier gains the ability to make a number of extra attacks equal to their weapon's rate of fire, minimum 2. So with a shotgun or a flamer, that can give you a guaranteed 2. Or with something like the heavy bolt rifle, I can be getting 12 single fire shots or 20 single fire shots, depending on how much rate of fire I built up when I've used it. And it's got some good upgrades. If you don't go into Arch-Militant, it actually has upgrades that allow you to retain MP after attacking, which is vital. Muzzle Velocity we get first. This will help against the Chaos Spawn, which is the first hit of each range burst deals additional damage equal to the weapon's current rate of fire. So that'll be 4 base damage on the scrap guns. In the prologue, you do want to drop her initial bolter because it has 40 recoil and it is way too much. And you want to use one of the scrap auto guns until you can get a las rifle in Act 1, and then once you get to the Explorator vendor, you'll buy an upgraded bolt rifle. We build ballistic skill first because we want to be able to hit things and crit. Rapid reload is going to be one of the first ones you get because you will be reloading a lot because you empty your magazines very quickly, especially if you use some of the auto guns like the Ripper in Act 1. Ballistic skill, the first ability we're going to get is rapid fire because we are focusing on that rate of fire. We then get agility, and as soon as we can, we get Litany of Hatred. This is going to be a party-wide buff, and it is incredibly broken and overpowered. This, it breaks the game. At the moment, it adds extra base damage. I believe the devs would need to change this to percentage damage to stop it being so broken. Rank 8 we get Unfaltering Fire, so rapid fire no longer reduces our damage, along with more demolition. We get Firearm Mastery Upgrade 2, so until the end of combat the soldier rate of fire is increased by 50%. This is huge, very, very important to the build. Fired Up means whenever the soldier deals damage, their critical damage is increased by 1% until the end of combat, and if you do a 30 round burst, that's an extra 30%. So fantastic MVP ability. We need to build agility because we want to go first and we want to dodge. Concentrated fire will increase area damage. It's the only way that we're going to have reliable area damage at the start because we don't build into it till late game because our bot rifle is more important. Rank 11. So the second that you build into the second skill, that is. You can either do Awareness, which is probably the better one, or Law Imperium for early game if you have no one to cover it. I recommend Awareness, but I was just doing Law Imperium because I had a party where 4 different people were covering Awareness. Rank 12 needs to get Strength. This is to build into heavy weapons. If you're not building into heavy weapons, you take Perception. Bolt Weapon Expert, get extra arm pen. That's a lot more damage. Swift Slaughter will basically allow Reverend Slaughter to be used at 2 kills, so you can use that more quickly. Tenets of Retribution, also fantastic. So this will add base damage to all of our bolters. This makes her incredibly strong. We get heavy weapon proficiency early because we're going to be building into it, so we want to get that out of the way, although you probably won't swap over to a heavy weapon until you get the heavy bolter. Law Imperium, like I said, can be Awareness here. And then Firearm Mastery Upgrade 3. Until the end of combat, all the soldiers' attacks are 20% harder to dodge until the end of combat, and the soldiers' range attacks gained at 10% armor penetration. And because we're going into Arch-Militant, that's going to be the best one to pick here. Without a question, the best tier 2 for Argenta is Arch-Militant. I know a lot of people are really tied to Master Tactician, and there's been popular videos and builds on it before, but it's just not as effective as her heavy bolter build, which is going to be on the Arch-Militant. Even comparing the Aldari Rune Cannon, which with the new Deadly Accuracy talent that gives extra perception base damage to every shot, and you're firing like even up to like 80 shots with it, it will not even become close to matching the damage of the improved heavy bolter. It's just so much stronger, and it ramps up degraded defense so much quicker. So the purpose of versatility, for those that don't know, is you gain weapon skill and ballistic skill, as well as when you have 4 more stacks, additional damage based on which one's highest, and that will increase with attacks. And to switch versatility, you have to switch between a single attack like a single fire and a burst fire, or an area attack, or a melee, or a ranged, or a psycho power. So as long as you're swapping up your attack types, you're constantly increasing damage. It's a strong enough mechanic that sometimes you don't even really need to be purposely doing it, but it's good if you can aim to do it. First ability we're going to take is Wildfire. This is the Arch-Militant's next attack. This turn will cost 0 AP and will not count towards the attack limit. The cost of this ability is reduced by 1 AP for every 4 stacks of versatility, minimum 1, except from Finest Hour where it can be 0. Always Ready will start with 2 stacks of versatility, so that's quite useful because some of the talents need stacks to order be useful, which is like Reckless Rush with All Out. Steady Superiority is the heroic action for this. First attack after using this ability each turn costs 0 AP. I tend not to prioritize this over Firearm Mastery, but if you somehow end up into round 2, you will then click this. Ballistic skill and your AP increase come at rank 5. Then rank 6 we get Heavy Gunner. The Arch-Militant's heavy weapons now cost -1 action point, so it'll be back to normal cost rather than having +1 increased cost. We'll get more ballistic skill. Rank 7 we get Reckless Rush, and we also get Breaking Point. This is going to help complete the actual setup. Heavy weapons deal 1 base damage and 10% damage and ignore 2 deflection. This is the point where the stolen auto cannon becomes more powerful than the Ripper, and if you've already got the heavy bolter, then you definitely want to equip it at this point. We then get Demolition and All Out. All Out is pretty big with Reckless Rush, so what Reckless Rush does is the Arch-Militant immediately gains agility based MP. If the Arch-Militant has stacks versatility, they gain 3 more stacks versatility, which lasts until the end of their turn. That second part where it says lasts until the end of turn is important, because All Out, whilst the Arch-Militant is under the effect of Reckless Rush, their attacks do not cost MP. So to be under the effect of Reckless Rush, you do need that second part. The first part won't actually give you the buff that allows you to use this, so this is why Always Ready is so important. Rank 9 we get some agility as well as overpower. Overpower will give us increased critical hit chance as well as critical damage, and this will be based on our ballistic score, and this is why heavy guns vastly outperform non-heavy guns because of the previous lance we've taken in. Flash fire reduces the costs of the requirements for wildfire, so it drops down to 3 stacks versatility instead of 4, so at 6 it only costs 1. So that's very useful. You'll have that pretty much straight away after 1 attack when you've Reckless Rush from the start of combat with Always Ready. Demolition, agility, very nice to have. It slowly improves us. We then get Steady Superiority 4. This allows you to use both Firearm Mastery and Steady Superiority in the same combat, but not in the same turn. Like I said, Lord Imperium, or just keep going with Awareness at rank 13. Adaptability is going to be what turns versatility stacks into critical hit chance, which is going to be very useful each turn. At rank 14 we get Perception. We're going to heavily build Perception because rank 3 you have very high dodging enemies, and you want a lot of Perception if you want to be able to reliably hit someone without overstacking buffs. Flame Weapon Expert then comes in. Flame Weapon attacks cost 1 AP less. This allows us to do the area flame attacks for 1 AP, so that's very useful for getting that damage up. Then we get Devastating Attack. Devastating Attack is going to be something that's going to proc and prime a lot of our abilities for using our damage talents in Arch-Militant. What this does is the Arch-Militant's next attack, if it hits, will cause the target to make a toughness resistance test with a -16 penalty. That penalty is based on bliss score or weapon score, whichever is highest. If failed, the targets will suffer a negative effect based on the attack's type. Impact damage knocks target prone for 1 round. Piercing and render damage inflicts bleeding and slowed on the target until the end of combat. Energy and all other damage inflicts blinded on the target until the end of combat. So these effects will use stuff like Contempt for the Weak. We then get Breaking Attack, so this will lower enemy armor and toughness on our Devastating Attack. That will also be important for proccing other talents as well as killing things fairly quickly. More Perception, more Imperium and or Awareness, as I said, and we then get Critical Versatility. The Arch-Militant gains 5 number of versatility stacks bonus percentage to critical damage. This bonus is kept when Arch-Militant uses Cautious Approach or Confident Approach. Very, very useful to have because this is going to be what starts racking up our crit damage. So we get more perception, and then finally we get Litany of Purification. This is because you don't really come across Xenos enemies until towards the end of Act 2, so that's why we get this towards the end of Act 2. We then also get Steady Superiority Upgrade 2. Until the end of combat, every attack grants a stack and 2% bonus critical hit chance. Not as important, but the other options aren't exactly the best. Like I said in the Abelard video, you're not using MP anyway, and yeah, we don't need to reset our health at all. So, Exemplar is where this build really starts doing obscene things. So, at rank 1, you can either take Eager for Battle or Degrade Defense as your first Exemplar talent. If you're using teammates with Armor Strip, again, you take Degrade Defense first. If not, Eager for Battle, if you are using Armor Strip, it's going to be a little bit more helpful. I might have said that wrong, so sorry for the confusion. We then get Wreck and Ruin. After the soldier deals damage to 3 different enemies, the soldier gains 26% more damage to their next attack in the current combat, and that's going to be based on Ballistic Skill bonus, which is going to be pretty high. We then get some more Demolitions. We're getting close to getting that turned into damage. We then get Distract. Now, Distract is the Arch-Militant's burst attacks and melee area attacks reduce the dodge of all enemies hit by 8%. This is going to be useful for priming some of your other talents later for your damage stuff from Arch-Militant and helping your allies score those hits. We then get more Bliss Skill, and then at rank 3, we also take the common talent Grenadier. Incredibly important for ranged builds because they don't have access to Destroyer. The first grenade used in combat does not spend AP and does not count towards the attack limit that turn. This is to spam Iron Eye grenades. With the change to colony rewards, everyone will have Iron Eye grenades. You do want to be using them if you want to be getting out damage numbers. Rank 4, you have 2 options here. You can take controlled shots, so you don't blast your teammates with those burst fires, or you take Entrenched to bank AP if you run out of attacks but you still have AP going on, or if you're in a weird place where you can't land an attack but you want to save it for your next run and gun. I use Metabolic Overcharge to give Argenta an extra turn, then I Entrench so she doesn't take damage, and then when she gets a turn again, she gets all that AP and MP back when she uses run and gun. So we take some more Demolition, and rank 5, so this is going to be level 40, you get Degraded Defense and Preferred Targets. Preferred Targets, as you can see, when enemies have their dodge reduced by the effects applied by the Arch-Militant, we get 10 critical hit chance, and when the Arch-Militant attacks targets had their parry reduced by any effects applied by the Arch-Militant's allies, the Arch-Militant deals 20% more critical damage. So this is going to be helpful to guarantee crits, as well as doing critical damage if you've reduced parry by any means, and Degraded Defense is going to be your biggest damage rider in the game. We then, at rank 6, get more Bliss Skill, and then enough bullets for everyone, so the soldier's second attack in a turn deals 21% more damage to enemies that have not suffered damage from soldier in this turn. So usually I'll open up with the Flamer, and then that will proc Wreck and Ruin enough bullets for everyone, and then I'll do a massive burst that benefits from both of them. I then take Kick because I don't like the stances. All they do is lower your damage, and we get some more Perception. Martial Art will give the Kick a chance to knock enemies prone, and because we're using Power Armor, we do have increased strength, so there is a good chance that that could happen, especially with buffs. I also take No Heresy, so Imperial characters get 10% critical hit chance, 10% armor against Xenos or demonic creatures. Their allies gain half the bonuses of No Heresy, however, Imperial World characters, Lore Xenos and Lore Warp are always 0. So it's a buff to yourself and allies, which is quite useful for certain encounters. Then we can get more awareness and more Lore Imperium. Now, I picked Deadly Aim here. This is optional, but if the character's dodge reduction is higher than enemy's dodge before applying heavy or medium armor penalties, the character's damage against that enemy is increased by 1% for every 5% difference between the character's dodge reduction and the enemy's damage. This normally being between 20 and 25% damage increase. You don't need that. You can take something else if you prefer. If you want to get Extermination here, then grab that earlier because base damage is always pretty good. Rank 10, we get an AP increase along with Demolition Engineer. So the soldier's Demolition instead of Intelligence is used to determine additional damage dealt with ranged area attacks. Deals 5% more damage for every 10 points in Demolition. So that's 160, so that's 16 times 5, extra percentage more damage. Pretty good. We then get Point Blank, so all the soldiers' area attacks gain 29% arm penetration and ignore forward deflection when get used against enemies within a 3-cell radius around the soldier, and that is going to be based on ballistic score and more ballistic skill. Ballistic skill, whatever. We then get Exploit Weakness. The Arch-Militant's attacks that targets that have their armor reduced by any effects applied by the Arch-Militant's allies, so that's you or your allies, deal 10% more damage. When the Arch-Militant attacks target that have their deflection reduced by any effects applied by the Arch-Militant's allies, that Arch-Militant deals +2 damage. More perception, because that works with some of our abilities to increase damage as well. Agility, and if you've been taking Law Imperium, this is where you can get more awareness. If you've been taking awareness, you'll probably pick up Medicae here. But yes, Extermination, any damage that the character deals is increased by +1 for every attack they made, so +1 stacking bonus. I take Tenderize here. This is enemies damaged by Soul's air attack suffer 5 damage on the next attack that hits them. It will only be the first hit in a burst. If you want to change this for a different talent, feel free. Contempt for the Weak, yep, 20% more critical damage against targets that are stunned, prone, or blinded, and we can apply 2 of those effects. Medicae, then we grab Dismantle. Any of the area attacks, both melee and range, reduce deflection of all enemies hit by 2 and their armor by 7% till the end of combat. Notice how that works with some of our previous talents we've taken. Strong and Together, this is an optional one that, again, you can change. This one just adds 5 agility to all allies because Argenta has agility's finest. I then take Controlled Shot. You could take Dash, but I like having Controlled Shots, otherwise I'll sometimes mow down my allies. Another optional one, Pinpoint Accuracy. The character ignores 4 of the enemy's deflection, rounded down. This will increase with our ballistic skill, so you can pick something else if you'd like. I take Accustomed to Glory here, so the heroic attack desperate measures, if used by the Arch-Militant, gains +1 base damage and 10% damage on all attacks until the end of combat, so it's by yourself or allies, so the more heroic acts you use, the bigger that comes together. But that will complete the build, and as you can see, even at level 50 we were taking out enemies very quickly with the EXP squish, and you'll find that you'll do really high damage in Act 1, you'll do really high damage in Act 2, Act 3, Act 4, and Act 5. Like, this I see getting nerfed before the official launch of patch 1.5, but we'll have to see. So there's not too much variation to be looking at here because this is quite a min-max build. Like I said, you can switch between Awareness and Law Imperium, whichever you need. Law Imperium will not keep up in the end game because Argenta is not an int-based character, but it is useful early game. Awareness, however, will always be useful for her, and there are points where you can be using single shot stuff. And because of Litany of Hatred, you can actually use a sniper early game, and in Act 3 there's a time where you use sniper and the sharpshooter boots, which will get armor pen based on awareness, so those are things to consider. Flame Weapon Expert, you could take later if you wanted to, but I don't really see much reason why you would with everything else you get, because everything comes in pretty nicely. If you wanted to swap Degraded Defense and League of Battle around, that's absolutely fine. You could even get Degraded Defense and Deadly Aim first, but I don't think it's going to be as useful because you're not going to be doing too well because enemies have really high dodge in Act 3. So this is my preferred use here. You could even take in Vital Points to get a little bit more crit damage, but it's not as big as it could be, and ignoring for like deflection or more based on buffs is quite good. One thing to consider here is in the gear. Corruption Eradicator Helmet or Gunslinger Helm. The Eradicator Helmet will be vastly stronger. It's a 2x damage increase, and this is a percentage-based damage increase. Adherent of Mankind, again, Act 3, very good power armor, or the 1-star power armor from her main quest line, but that's for Act 5 only. Tactical Backpack will increase the rate of fire of the improved Heavy Bolter. You could use the Aquila Pendant, the Dog Tags, Fury Incarnate, Focus Incense, Ruby Splash if you wanted to be able to shoot in melee, but stuff that increases her willpower is going to be quite useful. Chains Domination, very powerful for this build because it just completely, every turn, even when you're not using your ability, will increase your damage. Demolition Instructions are good for your Flamer or Echo of Victory to increase armor pen. Beadamite will give some good damage. Early game Book of War Prayers will do the same, and St. Cognatius' Scriptures is very useful if you are building Law Imperium. For gloves, compensating gloves and marks and braces are going to be 2 of the most important. Boots, Caligae of St. Keith are quite useful, and Sororitas boots. Sororitas boots are currently bugged in 1.4, and we'll have to see if they fix it for 1.5. I did not actually get around to testing them, but I did test heavy breaches, and heavy breaches weren't fixed. But yes, the best weapon for heavy in the absolute game, improved Heavy Bolter. Even if she could use the Rune Cannon, I would still say the Heavy Bolter. It's just better. The secondary slot, you'll get Judex when you have it. Very, very good. Fiery Retribution is also good before you get Judex, and Endgame Purging Fury, because of that direct damage, is just huge. It does 2,000 direct base damage when you hit the final boss, and that turns straight into Degraded Defense, so it's very good. Alternatively, if you don't want to build heavy, you can actually go for the smaller bolt rifles, so you can use Hymn of Vehemence and then They Shall Weep in the late acts. So this build for the non-heavy version is there. You could even build this as a Master Tactician, but I prefer, when it comes to Master Tacticians, Chorder for Act 5 is just better. So that build is going to be on here, and it's probably one that I won't cover in a video unless people ask for it. But yes, that will complete Argenta, and yeah, she is goddamn strong. There is no two ways about it. I hope by now you're already playing, because we're going to be releasing these one at a time. But if you have any questions, do pop along to a live stream, leave a comment below, leave a like, share to your friends, and anyone that you want to get into the game that might have been scared by the amount of talents, do send them over to here, because I've got that covered. I've put out what everything does, and I like to explain it, and I like to get more people in the game, because the more people playing means the more money for Dark Heresy. I'm Reverend619. I've been your host today. I'll see you in the next video.